All right. Mondays, where we are focused on raising private capital and investing with purpose. So, whether you are a new investor or an experienced investor, understanding the art of raising private capital is crucial in today's competitive landscape. Join us as we navigate the complex realm of attracting investors, securing funding, and building meaningful relationships that fuel your business growth. All right. Hello, guys. I'm your host, Kalisha, and I have my co host, Betzy, with us today. What's going Oh, my God, this sun. What's going on, girl?
Girl, you have so much going on right now. You're doing
Betzy?
the podcast from the car. So, you guys, if she's a little bit lagging, that's because
Yeah.
she's like outside of the meetup with Pace tonight in Tampa. That is so exciting. I
Mhm.
mean, aren't you hosting that
So much
today?
fun. Yeah. I had to put my phone like on do not disturb because everyone keeps calling me, like, where are we meeting? Where are we meeting? And I'm like, yep, sorry, I can't talk right now. Tune in.
Yeah, but
Tune in. Let's
we're here and we're like really excited to get to talk to our guest today. We and you see our
Gonna be fun.
dedication. I mean, Kalicia's literally in the parking lot.
Listen, you got to do what you got to do. Make it work. No excuses. Got to make it work. You got to make it work. But guys, we have a great guest that we're going to bring on. But before we do, Betsy, hit them with that
Yes.
disclaimer.
You guys, the following information is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence. We do not provide financial, legal, or professional advice. Everything that we do or say is from our own experience. You guys, please don't take it as like word.
Take it with a grain of
Please
salt.
go and yeah, go do your own due diligence. Find those professionals who are certified. We always
Mhm.
make sure to do that in ourselves with our own
Yeah.
cases. So we want you guys to practice that too.
Yeah. No, definitely. So, guys, this person we've known this person like we're both in like two mastermind programs, a high performance coaching with Keston and SubTo with Pace Morby. And I think we all have gotten super close through the high performance coaching program. And we always heard about Tanisha in SubTo. If you want midterm rentals, go to Tanisha. But I think we've all like developed like a great relationship now. We have an understanding about each other's business work or personal lives, all that stuff. So we're like, you know what? I think this is a time for us to bring her on the show where she can just share what she's doing, how she's raising capital, how she's operating for her corporate rental. So, guys, let's welcome Tanisha Epps to Money Mondays. What's going on, girl?
Hey, ladies. Super excited to be here. Thanks
Listen,
so much
love
for the
it.
Thank
invite.
you for coming on. We're so
Yeah.
excited to have you.
Oh my
I
God.
love
Yeah.
Finally.
this. I love this. Every time I need to know something about capital, I just know who to go to.
No, listen. This is. I love how Betsy said finally, but you know what? Guess so, guys. A little bit story. We were supposed to have Tanisha on this show maybe about a month ago. But then Tanisha got married, so congrats officially.
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
She got married, so we had to switch some things around, but nothing happens before it's time. So we're happy that you're here,
Exactly.
and we're gonna chat. You ready?
Cool. Yeah,
All right,
let's
let's
go.
go. So, or the standard, the first question is, everyone wants to know, like, how did you get into real estate investing? Because we all know you do your full time job. Like, how did you get into it?
So the funny thing is husband, I have to get used to saying that, by the way. So my husband, who was, trying to figure out, like, we were talking about some things we were interested in, and he gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad to read.
Mm-hmm.
I read like the first few pages and then I put the book down for like some years. Okay. Like not even a couple of days or a couple of weeks. I put the book down for some years.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day I was cleaning off my bookshelf and I'm like, oh, this book is here. So let me just pick it up and read it.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that had me decide I thought I wanted to be a realtor because I was trying to figure out how to get into real estate. That did not work out well because I came from a travel job. So I literally traveled across the country for almost 15 years. And I literally knew like nobody here anymore. I was already an introvert, so that
Wow.
made it worse. So being a realtor and an introvert, that again, two
You're
things
like,
that
no, no.
don't necessarily work. So I did that for a very short period. And then I put the book down again. Okay. This is the crazy part. Same book. Cleaning the bookshelf off again one more time. And I'm like, okay, let me just read this book. And this was a little bit before COVID.
Yeah.
And I'm reading the book, and you know how as you get older and you grow, your mind changes and things just resonate with you differently. It's perfect the way that you just said.
Yeah.
Things basically happen in their own time. So I read this book, I'm talking to him, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to get into real estate investing. I'm just going to buy a rental property. Because as I'm reading, I'm like, I really should have done this while I was traveling on the road when I had no bills, no nothing. I was literally just stacking cash on my
Oh,
travels. I should have just bought a rental property then, but I didn't. So I start going to meetups, getting, involved with some different people. And I also, it takes me 2 years to like decide to do anything. It's so bad. Like even buying a car takes me 2 years. So I go and I'm like, okay, when I go to these meetups, I meet a lender. I do all the paperwork with them to do traditional lending for rental property. And then COVID happens and everybody stops lending.
yeah.
Everybody, like literally, they were like, no, we're not giving out money for our lines of credit. I had $1 million line of credit lined up. Okay. And they would not give me a
Whoa.
dollar, like nobody. So
Whew.
I'm like, how do I get started? So I pick up another book. It was real estate. It was long distance real estate investing by David Green from Bigger
David
Pocket.
Green.
hmm I just followed the instructions in the book and I bought 4 properties in 7 months in a state that until a few months ago, I had never stepped foot in. Okay. So I had 4 properties I bought in Indiana and I still never seen any of those houses. It's just that when we left the last SubTo mastermind, my husband wanted to go to the Indy 500. So that's
Yeah.
the only reason I've ever set foot in that state. And it was literally for the 6 hours that the race went on. So that's how I got started in real estate.
That is insane. Like, now I got so many questions because I'm like, okay, how? Like 4 properties in 7 months. How did that even happen?
So the book told me to find a realtor and a property manager, and it kind of gave me an outline of how to pick a location. So I just did a ton of research.
Hmm.
And luckily for me, the realtor that I connected with was also a property manager and he was also an investor.
Yeah.
So it was like the whole trifecta. And so he went out looking for properties for me. Again, I'm not there, so I have to rely very heavily on the properties that he's seeking. And that first house we actually bought from a rehabber. Horrible experience with lenders, by the way. It was a traditional lender. I had no clue what they were doing, and I don't think they really did either. And the person threatened to back out um,
Oh,
of the deal because my lender was such a bad experience. Um, but once we got through that one, he was like, "Look, I'll sell you, give you first right of refusal on every other house that I rehab, as long as we don't use that lender again." So I'm like, "Okay, great." But remember, I'm doing traditional lending, so or
London.
traditional buying. So I'm using my personal name, my own credit, and I didn't really know how I was going to come up with money for down payments.
Hmm.
So I went and got a HELOC on my personal home because I had a ton of equity, which literally does no good for you unless it's actually to work. So I used a home equity line of credit to put down the down payments on traditional lending. And that
Mm.
technically I was my own first lender from
Yeah.
my house to buy those 4 houses that
Yeah.
literally are all paid back with the cash flow from the house. So I bought
Hmm.
all those 4 houses with no money out of my pocket.
Yeah. It's crazy. I love that you said that because a lot of persons will be like, how, first of all, with a home equity line of credit. But I love that you said you are your own private money lender.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Because technically, as you said, technically it's zero out of pocket,
Yep.
and you purchase these 4 properties using a HELOC. And for those who are listening after this goes live, just keep in mind your HELOC is also a source of funds when you want private capital for any of your projects or if you're looking at land. So with all of that, like when did you pivot to decide, okay, like when did you realize I want to start raising capital for deals? Like what was the turning point?
Well, the first piece was when I realized that I didn't have to use traditional lending anymore. That was number one. And so, this guy, Pace Morby, I say he stalked me on YouTube. That's my like running joke with him. When people ask, how'd you get into SubTo? Because I was doing a search for how to buy houses without your own money. That
Yeah.
was my search because at some point your HELOC still has a limit. Like you can't
Mm-hmm.
borrow but so much money. And so he started stalking me on YouTube. That's what I'm just gonna say that he was stalking me on YouTube. And I joined SubTo. And that's really where my mind opened up to not only creative finance, but literally using other people's money in
Yeah.
order to buy properties. And so my biggest thing was before I go to get someone else's money, I want to see what it's like to be a lender. So
Mm-hmm.
that way I have the experience so I can build the story. So when I go to other people and I talk to them about raising capital, I can literally tell them, hey, I've also been a lender. I know how
Yeah.
it goes. And my story I basically tell them is I had $50,000 sitting in the bank that was literally doing nothing. Like my bank had the nerve, okay? My bank had the nerve to pay me $1 per month
First
on 50
month.
grand. They paid me $12 for a whole year.
Oh
The
my
nerve.
God.
And then they took my 50 grand and made how much more
Oh
money
my
on it?
God.
Like
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
start understanding how
Yeah. Yeah.
banking works, are they really doing you a favor?
Mm-hmm.
It's just so we can digitally see it on a piece of paper or online. And
Yeah.
so when I did my first private money lend, and it was actually the person's first time also borrowing money. So I was like, oh, I get my first check. I'm like, wait a minute. The bank gave me $1. You gave me $500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
So
how did you find that person? I want to go back and like take this step by step. How did you find the person to lend to? How
it
did
was in
you
the
build?
community.
Yeah.
It was in the community. So I had actually built a relationship with this person. I saw what they were doing in their business,
Mm.
and that was the biggest piece. So they were very visible on social media about what they were doing. I had one-on-one conversations with them, so I actually got to know that person, not just, hey, I don't know your name, but here's 100 grand or 50 grand. I actually built a relationship with that person, and so when they came to me and said, "Hey, I've got this deal. I know that we were talking about you potentially wanting to raise capital, but also to be a lender. Would you
Mm-hmm.
consider being a lender on my deal?" So I had him literally walk me through everything that he was doing because it was a flip, and I don't do flips. So
Yeah.
all I asked was on top of the lend, just make sure that you keep me informed on what you're doing because I'm trying to learn. And he was great. Now, the best part of it, because some people will have issues with people not communicating, etc. He did everything that he promised me he would do. If I had a question, he would answer it. He kept me up to date on what was happening every month. He literally paid me on time. And on top of that, when the loan actually needed to extend past the time that we had initially agreed, he called me ahead of time. We had a whole conversation about it. He let me know what was going on and asked me, hey, is it okay if we continue to extend the loan at the same rate? Well, again, $500 or $1. Now I don't have to go figure out where my money's going to go or be
Yeah.
upset that it's back in the bank, literally
Mm-hmm.
making $1. So I said, sure. So he kept it for another 3 months, which was great. I made another 1,500 bucks, 1,500, $3. I'm going to keep saying that because
Yeah.
people don't really think about it until you see the difference. And so that I met him in a community and built a relationship with him. And I have a very short list of people that I lend to at this point, and he's still on it to this day.
Man. I mean,
Yeah.
I like what you said too in terms of some persons will be like, I don't want to extend the loan, but then when you get the capital back, it's just sitting there. What is it doing? Like,
Nothing.
but you're like, I want my $500. Am I still gonna get that? Yep.
Hmm.
And I like the way how you viewed that as well. But one, so you mentioned that you were building that relationship with the person and you point out something super key that they were posting on social media. How long before did this like the entire deal happen? Like did you know him like 2 months before or like just a week before? Or what, how long was it?
It was a few months. So I kind of paid attention to what people were doing in the community because that's just what I do. I just watch people what people do. And so I watched what he was doing. I literally watched his growth. Now, this is somebody that I remember was calling me about going out and door knocking, to now, if I look at where they are today with the business that they have today, like, it's pretty cool to see people's growth and progression, and to know that I was his first private money lender. But I just paid attention to what he was doing, and I watched to make sure that his actions lined up to the words that he was saying, because that for me was the most important part. And so I felt really, really comfortable just saying, okay, I trust you. I'm going to lend this to you. But also, our paperwork was very solid. So that part was really important to me, to make sure I understand how I could get my money back if I needed to, the position that I was in on the loan. And again, I really needed to know what they were doing with the project, and if they had done any projects before based on what they were doing. And they had. And that's
Yeah.
really where the confidence built, because I was able to watch the process.
And then did you lend after that deal, or did you just start like say, hey, I'm not using my money at all?
So I have done probably another 5 or 6 loans after that with
Mm-hmm.
different people. Still, again, I have my core group of people. Like, I have a loan out right now for somebody's rehab that was going to be a wrap, that they ended up finding a traditional buyer for. And so they were actually going to hold my money until January of next year. But again, I watch what this person's doing on social media. I've talked to them on a regular basis. I've met the family. I know what they're doing. And they keep me in the loop. That's all I ever ask people, is just to communicate with me. Like, tell me what's going on. Tell me what you're doing. That one
Yeah.
actually closes in October. Do you know? I'm glad that I'm getting my money back, but then I'm frustrated again, because I'm like, oh man, number one, I
You got
didn't
a
make the
funny
full
gift.
return, and I got to figure out what to do with my money after that. So we're right back at the same place. But it's the same
Man.
thing I tell my own lenders when people lend to me, is I just tell them about my own stories. And the more stories that you can build and the more experience that you have, it's so much easier for people to really resonate with what you're trying to accomplish. Because I
Mm-hmm.
used to always think I was asking people for money.
Yeah.
And when I realized as a lender that I'm not asking anybody for money, I'm giving you an opportunity to beat the bank. That's really what I'm
Bingo.
doing. That's
Bingo.
it.
Bingo. It's funny too, because when I talk to persons as well, and if they're completely new to private money lending, I always use the example of the bank, in terms of, okay, think about it, where you give the bank the money and you're saving and it's sitting there, and you go to a bank and you ask for a home loan. Whose money do you think they're using for a home loan and giving you this high interest rate? Exactly. And then they give you a return of like 0.01%, and they're making the bank. Like, it's the same thing I always try to explain to persons. But let's pivot a little bit in terms of the corporate rental space. A lot of persons know it for midterm rentals. At first, you would hear midterm rentals or travel nurses. But what I know what I see her face and I know what she's gonna say. She hates the term. So Tanisha hates the term midterm rentals. But T, tell us, like, what made you decide to focus on that strategy?
So I have this board, this full board downstairs. You know how people write vision boards and write out, oh, these are all the things I want to do. And so I went through and wrote on this board every single thing in real estate that I thought I was interested in. And the reason why the corporate rental piece came up is because I used to be a corporate traveler. Again, I was, I've been in the insurance industry for 20 years, and I was on a catastrophe team. So I used to travel to catastrophe zones, do hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, those types of things. And we would stay sometimes in hotels and sometimes in corporate housing. Well, my company actually used to rent apartments, have them furnished, and then give them out to the people on the team as we would rotate. So I'm like, wait a minute, let me think about the business that they were doing. If
Yeah.
they can do that, and I was a corporate traveler staying in that same housing, and I know why people would need to stay there, then why can't I do the exact same thing in real estate? So that's really what led me to it, was my own experience there. And the second piece was when I would work in the insurance claims. I dealt with people who lost their cars, their homes, sometimes family members, things of that sort. And they always needed somewhere to go when they, had a major hurricane or tornado. Like, I was the person on the ground seeing those things.
Yeah.
Well, where do those people go when their home is not available to them anymore? They're going to temporary housing. And so that's really the way that I got involved in the path of what I'm doing now.
Man.
It's inspiring. Like,
Yeah, right?
you have a really big like reason to why you got into what you're focusing
Yeah.
on. That's beautiful.
It's funny too, because then there's so much things going on. through my head, but I'm trying to like pull out all the newbie questions that they will start to overthink. Like with something like that, yes, you went and you did your research, but
Mhm.
one of the major thing was, how did you have an idea how much money this asset is gonna make? That's the first question.
Oh, also, did you market the places that you were already where you already had your properties?
Mm-hmm.
No. So those initial properties I had were in Indiana. Those I would never use for corporate rentals. They are traditional rentals all day long. Like that is the best use of those properties. And that's another thing. Like you have to figure out what is the best use of a property. Like I have in the last week, I've had a few people reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, I have this property that I think would be great for a midterm rental." Again, I'm only saying the term midterm rental, by the way, because that's what other people say. Because that literally means nothing if you do not have a client avatar. It
Yeah.
means jack.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use that term because that's what people know, or corporate rental or something otherwise. So, I've had people, coming to me and they say, "Oh, I bought this house and it'd be a great midterm rental because I want to make a bunch of money." Well, number one, if the high level of money is your focus, you're already in the wrong business. That's just my opinion. And I'm just going to say it all day long because it's still
Yeah.
about service. The same as what you do, like with the short term rentals that you have, it's all about the service. And
Service.
if
Yeah.
you treat people right and you have the right service, the money will come. But not every property fits. I had a property, this guy was like, "Oh, this is a great house because I'm going to rehab it." Okay, well, tell me about the neighborhood. Tell me about the parking situation. Why would somebody need to come and stay in your location? Think about what's around and what's happening. What would be the reason? And so most people I'm running into now are finding that their properties don't cash flow as long-term rentals, right? They have run into a situation where they're like, they bought a property just to say they bought it, and now they're trying to pivot to another strategy on the
Mm-hmm.
back end instead of planning for it on the front end with multiple strategies. I don't
Yeah.
buy properties that don't work as long-term rentals because if it fails, if it doesn't work, you always have a backup. So, that's the biggest piece for me is just making sure that I know who would need to stay with me before I buy the property. And I
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of different clients. I have travel medical professionals. Like after this meeting, which I'm so sad to say that I have one of my apartments that I was still cleaning myself. I just hired a cleaning crew, but they don't start until my next one. So I have to go finish up this clean at an apartment that's like shortly from my house because I have a travel medical professional coming to stay with me. And she told me that her dollar max was $2,300. And I said, well, the last time I had that place rented, it was for 24, which is totally fine. I just asked her, "Hey, can you bump it up $50? If you can, I'm happy to host you for 3 months." And she said, yes. So where you think people have a ceiling and they tell you that doesn't mean that
Yeah.
they do, but you have to understand where people's money is coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where, let's say, for example, I'm going to use these apartments as an example. I have two apartments in the same building, arbitrage. They don't cost the same thing. They're a little bit different. They're in the same building. One's on one floor, one's on the other.
Mm-hmm.
One of them I have rented out right now for $3,100 a month, and that's the smaller one. This one I'm about to rent for just under 2,400. Either way, I still make cash flow. The
Yeah.
one for 3,000 is because I booked it on Airbnb. My other one is because their money's coming from travel medical, and their goal is to keep as much money as possible in their pocket because they have to pay things at home or they're
Mm-hmm.
saving to pay off credit card debt. Remember, I told you I was a traveler. Literally, the down payment on my house is because I traveled and I figured out how to be smart about not spending all my money.
Yeah.
You have to know where people's money is coming from first. And once
Mm-hmm.
you understand that, is how you can make your way into setting an appropriate price. You can still use Airbnb as a reference. You can still use Data Rabu. You can use Zillow. You can use all these different things. But there's no one platform that's going to give you the appropriate rate. Even Furnish Finder is a good tool and it's a good starting place. But it doesn't mean that that's exactly what you should
That's the
charge.
word.
I got a house in Arizona. We literally just had our guest leave like maybe a week ago. $8,500 a month. Long-term rental rate on that house is 2,600, I think. I had another house in Virginia rented out for 10 grand a month on my last booking. Long-term rent rate 2,500. But my
Yeah.
regular rate is 5,000 to $6,000 a month.
Mm-hmm. It's a
You got to know
bonus.
where people's money's coming from. Same as
So,
raising private capital.
right. Which I want to ask, like, when you get these properties, like, can you tell us about one of these properties where you use private capital for it? and how did you structure the terms? Because it's not like with private capital and it's a fix and flip, you can repay them their principal at the end of 6 or 12 months.
Mhm.
Like, how are you structuring the deal, and how are you planning to repay those lenders with these rentals?
hmm So the last one that I did, well, two, I actually just closed on another one today, as a matter of fact. So
Ooh,
I had to go and meet with the attorney and then come back here. So I made them push up the closing so I can make it back home in time to come do this interview.
love it.
So this one in particular is structured as a private money partner. So we have a percentage of equity split. And then this one, they were pushing me and pushing me for equity. It's my dad, okay? And I I don't always lend to family members, but here's the cool part. Is because I talk about raising private capital so much and I talk about opportunities so much and I talk about where I make my own money, now I have my family members literally coming to me asking me to give money, okay? This is what's
Oh,
happening.
yeah.
It's so crazy that I've almost taught my dad how to raise capital from someone else to bring to my deals so he can be the plug in the middle, okay? This is
Look at
that
that.
super, super cool. Yes. So this last one we structured, he's actually the PMP, so he's a private money partner, so he's gonna get an equity position on the cash flow, and then once a year, I'm actually gonna pay him interest on his money for a specified time period, but it's a one-time payment at the end of the year only. So I do not have to make a monthly payment on interest. He gets a basically, I look at it almost like a year-end bonus on your job where you're
Ah.
just gonna get an extra payment at the end of the year, so now you know that your money's working for you, plus you get a cash flow split. But what he understands on that one is if there's no cash flow, you get no money. If there's cash flow, then you get money, and I don't have to pay him back per se the initial investment because he's a partner on the
Mm-hmm.
deal, but he's
Yeah.
still getting an interest rate, so his money is still working for him better than the bank.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that we just structured, it's a simple private money loan. It's a 5-year term. So on my properties, I don't do fix and flips, like you just said. I'm not
Yeah.
cashing out quickly. I'm buying properties SubTo, seller finance, and I'm not cashing them out because they're at really great interest rates. Like the
Mm-hmm.
last 2 properties I bought were built in 2022, both of them SubTos. Beautiful properties. Like I literally have to do nothing but walk in and furnish them. So
Yeah.
the other one that we just bought in North Carolina, that one is a straight private money payment, a monthly payment every month, a 5-year term with the option to extend if we both agree. That's how that one's structured, and he's just got to get his money back at the end of the term, and that is going to come from a saving of cash flow. So what I do on my rentals is once all the expenses are paid, I have a portion of the money that I still save per principal pay down back to the lender, and I set that in a separate account
Mhm.
so that that money is accruing as the cash flow is coming in.
That is smart. Ooh, you
Yeah,
just dropped. That is so
strategy.
much smart. Yeah, because first people would just take the cash flow and just start spending it. I was telling someone recently, like the cabin. It's since 2023 that I started taking cash flow from the property, or after an entire year, because
Mhm.
we have to like build up at least 6 months of reserves. So my next thing is, when you do, how are you getting your lenders to agree to the 5-year term? Because for a lot of us, especially with our different communities, everyone wants 12 months max, or 12 months is too long, or they want 6 months.
Mhm.
How are you convincing them to do 5 year?
So the first thing I ask them is how did they come up with the term and why? Right? So remember back to what I said about being a lender. A dollar, $500 guaranteed money that I'm getting. If I get my money back that fast, I have to figure out what I'm going to do with it next, which means
Mm-hmm.
you have a period of time where your money's not actually doing anything for you. And then
Yeah.
you have to go back and renegotiate terms with someone else and or maybe the same person potentially, but your money's not doing anything during that blank time, like that dead time period. So for me, I don't want to think about what to do with it. And so the way that I approach it is number one, I tell them about what my business is, right? I don't do flips. So I'm not cashing the property out to get your money back right away. And if I say to you, hey, I'm just going to hold your money for a year and then I'm just going to go get another lender, now I'm just swapping it. And I'm really putting you in a position where at the end of that year, you have to go back again and figure out how is my money going to go work for me? I
Mm-hmm.
just cut I mean, I just cut to the chase, like, where some
Yeah.
people would be like, "Well, this," and no, I just tell you. I just tell you what my business is, I tell you what I'm gonna do, and I'm telling you, for 5 years, you don't even have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to sit back and collect a payment and be excited. Like one of my other lenders, I sent them money and they were like, "What is this money for again?" I'm like, "Are you serious?" They're like, "No, I totally forgot that you had my money." And so one of my other lenders came up to their term and I said, "Do you need your money back?" And you know what they said?
No.
"What would I go do with it again? The
Mm-hmm.
bank is not paying me anything." I said, "Okay, do you want to just extend your term?" And they said, "Would you please extend my term?" Like they're begging me to just not give them their money back.
Whoa. Listen, the fact that
Listen,
you just said they're begging you, this is why I tell people, like, as much as you need capital, if you need it for 12 months, do not take a 6 months money for 12 months. If it doesn't work, don't take it, because there is a lender out there that will work with the terms that you have.
Mhm.
exactly.
That's it.
Man,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like there is someone, but with
We
this
have a
too, like, what
question.
go Betsy.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
Joel.
Joel's asking, yeah, if Airbnb is illegal in the area, can we do a corporate rental? How would it work with an HOA?
So first, hello, Joel. He's everywhere. So I love this. Hey, every podcast I do, he's always here. So thank you so much for supporting. Like
Aw.
it's really exciting to see him here. So first thing is Airbnb is a platform, my friend.
Mhm.
Airbnb is a platform. It is not a thing other than a platform where you can list your property. So if we're asking about short-term rentals being illegal in an area, the first thing you have to ask is what constitutes a short-term rental. I should have been a lawyer, okay, in another life because I literally dig down into contracts and what they mean. So first you have to ascertain what does short-term rental actually mean in the location where you are. That is the most important piece. And then you have to determine what's illegal about it. Now, Airbnb as a platform says 28 days is a midterm stay.
Mhm.
That is their rule. That does not mean that is the rule everywhere. Like some places may say 6 months. So first you got to start with the location where you are. Then the
Yeah.
next piece is go into the HOA. And not every HOA, number one, most HOAs have limits on the number of properties you can have as rentals in the first place. So
Mhm.
that's one thing that you always have to ask, which people fail to do on a regular basis. They just assume because I bought a property that I can rent it. No,
Yeah.
not necessarily. If they're at their cap, you can't do it. And then secondarily, if the HOA puts a limit, doesn't matter what the state says because the HOA said, "Hey, we require 6 months or less." Plus, some of them have all these rules. Like somebody in Vegas brought one to me. Okay, the contract that was written by the HOA was so great. I mean, I like really appreciated it. If it was my house, I'd have been really upset. But the way the contract was written was beautiful. It literally said, "We do not allow anything less than," I think it was like a 6 or a 9 month lease. And if you try to circumvent it by leasing to your company to say that's the 12-month lease as an arbitrage, and then bring in someone short term and they find out about it, they can step into your place as the landlord, supersede you, kick that person out, and either fine you or kick you out of your house.
Oh,
That's how
wow.
these are. So this is why people need to find out the HOA rules.
Yeah. Oh well,
Yeah,
he did get specific on the
for
location. He
example.
says Dallas is where I am banned Airbnbs. It can spread to the suburbs like Plano, Frisco,
Plano,
etc.
Frisco, yeah, all those places. I mean, it's true. There's nothing that you can do about it. But that doesn't mean that you should then say, "Oh, I'm going to do midterm rentals" without a strategy. So if
Mhm.
you have not, I know he has already watched my videos on my YouTube channel, which is called MTR Mastery, Midterm Rental Mastery. I still hate the term, by the way, but whatever. So you need to know the rules and who would stay with you because if I have a 5 bedroom house, is a travel nurse coming to stay with me in a 5 bedroom house?
Nice.
No. Why the heck do they
Mhm.
need 5 bedrooms unless they happen to bring their family, or if you're going to do rent by the room, which means you have to run it
Mhm.
like a hotel or a vacation space, like a almost like a hotel or a dorm is pretty
Yeah.
much what you're doing. So you have to run through a series of why am I doing this? What type of property do I have and who would come to stay with me? And
Mhm.
can I just throw this out since he's talking about, midterm rentals and that type of stuff. I have a lot of people that reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, I know you do insurance stays." Yes, I do. But do you know those are not like an everyday thing? People
Thing.
only need to come to you if they have a claim. And that's assuming that maybe you have a relationship with someone that they need to reach out to you. Like I've already had like 6 requests today. So it's like busy, busy. Um, but just because you have a property doesn't mean somebody wants to stay with you.
One
So you
thing.
really need to understand how you're going to source your clients. And if you're only relying on Airbnb to bring something to you, just like raising
Mhm.
capital, if you're just sitting around waiting for somebody to ask to give you their money, then you're already setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you mentioned, I think a lot of persons just hear the fancy names for the strategies. Like, take the strategies out the window and really look on what can I rent this by the room? Don't call it pad split, because pad split again is just a platform. Can I
Yeah.
rent this by the room? Or as you said, T, is that are there, like, for example, construction workers happening in an area that they're going to motels and all that stuff? If you figure out how is you can generate income from that property, scrap the strategies, the fancy terms and all that. This is where it comes on to, you have to know your market.
Hmm.
You really have to, and you have to make sure that, as you said, you always have two backup strategies.
Hmm.
Well, not two exit, because things can go south. You know, the one that we're going through right now, things can go south.
Well, we have another question, Jose de Leon. Hey, Jose. He's saying,
Jose is he's driving. Sorry.
I love Jose.
I know.
He's my Disney buddy.
He
Oh
said
my
midterm
god.
underwrite, other than proximity to hospital slash population, how can we make an educated guess on income when comparable sites have a wide range of pricing?
So first thing is you can still use Zillow, you can still use Furnish Finder, you can use AirDNA, you can use Airbnb monthly stays, you can use Data Rabu, you can use all those things. But pricing doesn't help you if you don't know your client avatar. Because what you're going to end up doing is relying on a platform to bring people to you when you don't know the people that you need to come to you in the first place. So, yes, having a hospital is great, but why does that matter? So if I have a one bedroom apartment, let's say I have a one bedroom apartment, it's super cool because there's a hospital literally one exit up, which is where my current travel nurse that's moving in is coming to stay with me, right? She's working at that hospital. That's great. It's in the proximity to that hospital. But do you know this is the first time I've ever actually had a travel medical professional from that particular hospital stay with me? The ones I've had with me work at hospitals across town. But I
Mm,
know that they'll come stay with me because I know the drive. I know the problems with where they're going to go work, how hard it is to park, how loud it is, how you don't get the amenities that you have in my location. So I'm giving them an experience that makes them want to come stay with me, even if it's right not next to the hotel, I mean the hospital that they're working at. So again, you really have to understand who your client avatars are. So like when you have people, let's say you have properties in the city where you live. You know how you have people come to your door trying to sell you solar, they try to sell
mhm,
you whatever? Talk to those people and ask them, "Hey, are you from here? Are you working from out of town? If you guys are from out of town, where do you stay? How can I
yeah.
reach out to your supervisor? Do you guys need housing? Do you have more people come into the area? Construction, solar, roof repair, stuff like that." Those are the people you need to talk to so you figure
Mm,
out what's happening in your area that's an opportunity to do housing. Like for me, most people know I'm a huge Lego fan. Lego is building $1 billion facility in my city. I am working on trying to see how I can connect with them so that I can be a corporate rental housing provider for Lego. If I can get
mm,
that contract, I'm
yeah.
like, no, I've literally mastered my entire business.
And while it's answering Jose question is, what are your thoughts on niching down? Do you think someone should niche down and stick to one strategy, or find two strategies? Because especially for persons who are investing out of state, if they're not able to pick up those little gems and just connect with those people, what are your thoughts on niching down on a strategy?
It depends on your property and where it's located. So again, just because you're not there, I mean, it helps to have, those additional things that you can add on, but Google is a wonderful tool. It's
Yeah.
really, really great. Like you should start looking at what's happening in the local chamber of commerce. A lot of those places have Facebook pages where you can figure out what's happening in an area. Are they bringing people to an area? Is there a big company coming where they might need to stay? Is there a headquarters for a property in your location that would have a reason to bring executives and various people to come and stay with you? So you
Mhm.
have to do some research on your area. Just going to get a property, and this is with anything, not just midterm rentals, but with anything. If you don't understand who's going to come and stay with you and why, whether it's regular renters, like if you have a location that is, I don't know, 80%, 80 to 90% traditional homeowners. Would you go and buy a rental property knowing that it's going to be much harder to find renters because most people own their own homes? So, but if you have a very high renter population, so you have to look at that. Is it a balance? And those are the things that I think a lot of people unfortunately just miss out on. And you should still list on the free sites, Airbnb, VRBO. Like I just set up one of my properties on VRBO today for one we just got finished furnishing. Those are free. And if you never get anything from them, who
That's fine.
cares? It didn't hurt you to put it
Yeah,
on there. That's
man.
where I got my $10,000 booking for a place that I pay less than, like with all my expenses, it's about $2,600 a month. $10,000 booking on Airbnb, literally just because I had it on there.
Yeah. It's free marketing.
Free. Doesn't cost you a
Free.
dollar.
And they already have their different audiences that are popping up. I find like booking.com it helps with the reach as well for persons traveling like to a completely different state.
Mm-hmm.
That's been pretty good. But have you ever encountered any like backlash when trying to raise capital for any of your projects? Maybe someone saying this is a scam or just saying this is not for me or anything like that.
I haven't run into anybody saying it's no, that's not true. They didn't really use the word scam. Okay. I think we've all heard it. When you go to tell people about, because really, I think the first thing is, especially if someone's never been a lender before,
Hmm.
you want to protect your money because you don't really understand how the bank works.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem. Like most people don't understand that the bank is using your money. Like when they talk about the banks have the tallest buildings, there is a reason for that, right?
Hmm.
Number one, because they're visible. And the second, because they got all the money sitting in the bank. Like where I live, we have one of the Fed locations here. So I always think about this when I drive past the Fed. And the bank is literally taking my money, paying me pennies on the dollar, making me think they're doing me a favor so I can see it on a computer screen or on paper. And they're going to make the money that I can make myself. And you still have some people that are saying, hey, I just need to be able to see it. I just need to be able to go get it if I need it. So then
Yeah.
it becomes asking questions. Well, what are you going to use it for? Right. It's no
Hmm.
different than when we talk to sellers or realtors, like just digging down and finding out what people's actual goals are. So one of my lenders, this is my favorite one. They make $50 a month. Okay. $50. That's their return. It's a very small amount that they loan to me, but they make $50 a month. I literally asked them, "What's your interest rate at the bank?" And let's do some math. Like I pull out my calculator. Let's just make it real time.
Oh, yeah.
Pull out the calculator, and then I just compare what you're making in the bank and what you're going to make with me. And if you put yourself in the seat of the bank, now you're doing two things: you're becoming the bank, and you're beating the bank. Okay.
Hmm.
So $50. I said, what are you going to do with this money? And they said, oh, this is going to cover us to be able to go get drinks after we play golf. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So that's what they use the money for. They use it for their golf tab at the golf course.
Hmm. That
Cool.
is insane. But you just said, and I just want to repeat this, that it may go over some people's head. It's real. You're asking them questions.
Yeah,
What do you want?
very
And
important.
you're not, yeah, like what are your goals? And you're also sharing. You're not just going to them and be like, this is the best real estate is the best avenue for you to invest, blah blah. No, you're literally like showing them, let's do the math.
Hmm.
And that's a great approach with what you are doing, because then they're like, oh shit,
Hmm.
this makes sense, because you're walking them through the process and they can see. So thanks for sharing that. So guys, take notes.
Yeah.
Take notes. Take
There's
notes.
one more question from Joelle. It says there are tons of organizations I came across. One was in East Texas that does a 503c for veterans. So I can go up to the guy and pitch him this idea to partner on veteran housing. How would that work? Do you have experience with veteran housing?
I do not. However,
Mm.
someone just brought an opportunity to me recently about veteran housing.
Ooh.
But here's the thing. You can go ask anybody whatever you want, right? Who needs housing? That's always your first question.
Oh,
Who needs housing? What do they need it for? What purpose are you serving for them? Right? Who
mhm.
who is it that you're serving? And then where is their money coming from? You have to understand that. So what you should do is go connect with this person if if you know them individually, or even if you don't, if you can get a chance to talk to them, ask them what their goals are. and then find out who are they using now, like what is their process for housing these people. Understand where the funding is coming from. If you understand where the funding from is coming from, you're figuring out who it is that you're serving, and then you go and see if you can serve them in return. That's your
Mhm.
biggest piece. So just
Yeah.
saying, oh, I'm going to go do veteran housing, well, what if you go buy a property that has a PITI of $4,000 a month and they can only pay you 2,500? Well, it sounds great that you want to do veteran housing, but you can't afford it because it's not
Mhm.
going to cover your mortgage. So unless you're in the space that Pace Morby is, which I am not, I own houses with Pace, but I am not in his position. I am not just buying properties for depreciation. That would be nice, but maybe some time down the line, not today.
Not today. She's like, not today.
Not today.
I love the next question that he has, and I've been getting this question asked a lot too. Go, Betzy.
Yeah. One question, a lot of us are connecting with the same buyers, private money lenders, agents, sellers, etc. What is the key to standing out and building real relationships over transactional ones to raise capital and help each other?
I don't just do transactions. So that's the biggest piece is where people are just see, there's a difference again between asking for money and giving people an opportunity and building a relationship behind that. So if you don't understand your let's go through them. If you don't understand your buyer's goals, if you don't understand your private money lender's goals, if you don't understand the goals of your agent, if you don't understand the goals of your sellers, and you're not genuine in getting to know what they're trying to accomplish,
Mhm.
and number one, be willing to tell them that you cannot meet what it is that they're looking to accomplish, just be honest. And
Yeah.
if you can, tell them how you're going to build a relationship and then actually do it. That's how
Mhm.
you stand out from other people. And then do
Yeah.
what you say you're going to do. That's the huge piece. Like for me, if for some reason something crazy happened with the property and it doesn't cash flow, but I have a private money loan out, I am going to make sure that that money comes out of my own pocket if I have to pay them. So if I got to take that out of my paycheck because I still have a job, they're getting their money back. Even if
Mhm.
that means I can't go buy a new Lego set that month or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, I'm going to pay them back because that's what I said I'm going to do. And I'm going to make sure that I stay in touch with them because I think the problem that so many people have is they go out and they say, I'm doing all these great things that they're not really doing. Right. Like I can show people my properties, my lenders, like as we go through and they're getting furnished, I'm literally sending them updates. Like I actually have to send my lender the photos that I just got back on my property in North Carolina, beautifully furnished, just completed.
Mhm.
I'm going to send those photos to my lender so they can see what their money is actually doing for them.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then I talk to them about the type of clients that we have. Like, hey, in that property that you were a lender on, this is the type of person that we were able to help this month, or this is
Mm.
the family that we were able to help. Like, I literally want them to feel like they're a part of the people's stories.
Yeah. Man, life. And I wanted to touch on the thing from his question too. It's apart from Bill connect finding out the person's goals, don't get so consumed in one group
Yeah.
because everyone, like what I'm seeing is that someone be like, I want 20% return. We had someone who always talk about, I want 20% cash on cash, but they don't really understand what does that really mean. So it's like we couldn't even help them because they don't know what they want. So I think you now have to start educating that person with whatever is it that you know, try to bring value that way, but also step outside. Like T, you said your father, your dad, your family members. Like we have people with capital who are around us, and you're trying to raise private capital for someone million miles away when you
Mhm.
maybe have 100,000 around you, and you have no clue because one, you don't open your mouth.
Yep.
Two, you don't try to educate people and tell
Yep.
them this beauty of private money lending and the opportunity that it's bringing. So I would highly recommend start with your family and friends all the time. Like don't shut it down because one family member may not be able to do it, but they have a coworker who will
Yeah.
be interested in something like that. So literally like open your mouth and tell people what you are doing.
That's it. I got one of my most recent lenders because another family member I was talking to that loaned me money told this other person that they loaned money to me. And that
Mm,
person called me and said, hey, I have money that's just sitting in the bank that I would like to lend to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, the next time I have a project that fits your goals, let's talk about how much you want to lend. Where's the money
Mhm.
coming from? What are you looking to accomplish? What are you earning right now? Like, I literally ask those questions because I want to make sure that I'm doing something worthwhile for them.
Yeah.
Because if you have somebody that is actually making a decent return, which still can happen in, in some banks, it could happen.
Mhm.
If you're still making a decent return, why would I have you pull your money from that just for me to give you something less
Yeah.
when your goal is to achieve a certain return? If you're able to
Mhm.
achieve that in another way, then go do it.
Yeah.
Great, good for you. Like, there's no pressure here. And I
Mhm.
think that's the thing that a lot of people miss is, like, you feel like you're pressuring people, you feel like you're asking people for money. I don't pressure anybody into anything. I literally start out by saying, "Hey, if this is something that you're not interested in, like, by the time we're done, that's cool with me. Just know there's
Mhm.
no hard feelings. Like, it's your money. You do what you want with
Yeah.
it. If you choose to give it to me, great. That just means you trusted me to do it. But if we're not a good fit, whether it's on my end or yours, because just
Mhm.
because you have the money doesn't mean we're a good fit, because I will not take money from someone that I don't feel has a good that I just get, you get vibes from people.
Yeah.
I will not just take money from people just because. Like,
Mhm.
there has to be something there that shows integrity on both ends,
Mhm.
that says we're both going to do what we say we're going to do. I have no interest in just taking money from people just to take money. I
Yeah.
just I just don't.
Man, like right before we wrap up, like what advice would you have to anyone who's looking to raise private capital?
The first thing I would say is be genuine.
Mhm.
Um, Also, not everybody uses a pitch deck, okay? And I had not used them in the past. But I gotta say, the ones that I see from these two ladies on the screen, I like to borrow the strategies that other people do. They are so good that I'm starting to build out more pitch decks just to highlight the opportunity,
These. Mhm.
rather than just talking about it.
Yeah.
So now people have the visual, because again, I told you I use calculators when I talk to people about the money part. So why not have something visual they can see too? So I'm starting to use pitch decks more because of the two of you.
Love it.
And really just go out and build relationships and be genuine. Don't be afraid to say no to someone who's bringing you money, because all money is not good money.
Mhm.
Is just not. All money is not good
Mhm.
enough money. All relationships are not good relationships. And for me, I want the people that loan to me to be happy that they're working with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. Th- Girl, this was
Yeah.
worth it so much. I learned so much from this.
Me too. Thank you so much, Tanisha, for being here with us. We're so grateful that you were able to come and drop some awesome gems. I learned so much too. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it was
This
good.
is fun.
This was
It
so
was
good.
fun.
This was good.
Right
How can
time, right place.
people reach out to you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Best way is probably Instagram, and that is still Tanisha Epps. So it's at the Tanisha Epps on Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel. It's Midterm Rental Mastery, or maybe MTR Mastery, or you can search Tanisha Epps on YouTube. And I respond to my comments. People send me messages from there. I'm actually starting to have people reach out to me about raising capital and bringing me more and more deal opportunities. So those are the best ways to get in contact with me. But I'm super grateful that the two of you asked me to come on here. And as I'm talking, I'm literally learning more things about myself and building my own confidence and raising capital. Because sometimes you don't realize the things you've accomplished until you say them out loud to someone
Yeah.
else. And so thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you. You
Man.
guys, if you guys want to follow Tanisha, please do. It is in the description. So you guys can just click on that and go to her content and
Mhm.
start like absorbing it and taking action, because we don't preach just to absorbing content, but also taking a
Taking
lot of
action.
action. So thank
Exactly.
you again, Tanisha, for being here. Thank you guys, the viewers, for being here today too, and commenting and being so active and asking questions. You guys get some questions we don't think about, or it just
Mhm.
reiterates what we already are saying
Yeah.
repeatedly. And I just love seeing that from you guys. Any last words from you guys?
No, thank you so much. Really, thank you. And oh, so you have your meetup tonight.
Mhm.
Please give my brother a super big hug and tell it was for me, okay?
Okay, I will. I
All
will. I
right.
think he's at the airport, but like, I definitely will.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you,
Yeah.
ladies.
Yes, yes, you'll be so successful today, Kalisha. I'm very excited to see all your stories tonight.
Oh, yeah.
So
Thank you.
yeah, I'll be living for you today.
Mhm.
Love
So
it.
whether you're looking to finance your next project, launch or expand your new business, we hope that this episode gave you insights, strategies, and tips so that you guys can also raise capital and invest with purpose.
Bye, guys.